Turning to Iran this morning, President Trump is keeping the door open to launching attacks against the Islamic Republic as a U.S. carrier moves to the Middle East. Tensions appeared to be easing earlier this week after the president announced Iran halted the killing of protesters. But Gulf allies, including Qatar and Saudi Arabia, they have reportedly urged the president to hold off on those strikes. But White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt pushed back on that when questioned by NewsNation's Kelly Meyer.
A lot of these stories, to be honest with you, I've been reading them, and they've been based on anonymous sources who are pretending or guessing to know the president's thinking. The truth is, only President Trump knows what he's going to do, and a very, very small team of advisors are read into his thinking on that.
And joining me now, I have Majid Sadeghpour, political director for the Organization of Iranian American Communities. Majid, good morning to you.
Good morning, Markie.
You just heard the White House's response to reports that Gulf allies warned against an attack on Iran. Now the Wall Street Journal reports the president was advised that a large-scale strike against Iran was unlikely to make the government fall. That could spark a wider conflict. What, in your eyes, would be the domino effect if the president does give the green light for the U.S. to go in?
Well, first of all, I should say the task of overthrowing this regime belongs to the people of Iran, and they have accepted that challenge. And the carnage that you saw on the streets of Iran, the regime impart on the people of Iran, is a great indicator of that struggle. The people of Iran have been trying to overthrow this regime for 45 years. I think what we see today is a kind of convergence of a lot of factors: an organized opposition inside Iran, international pressure, and of course weakening of Iran's proxies and nuclear weapons program. And so that really, the change in Iran will have to occur and will occur in the streets of Iran and their organized resistance. And that's really what the key is. The people of Iran have an organized resistance that is trying to, by the way, establish a secular democratic republic and not return to a single party rule in the past.
Yeah, and I know you've come out and said that the current regime has been bankrupt on many different levels, right? Bankrupt politically, yes. Bankrupt morally. Right. The people of Iran, to your point, have wanted this regime toppled for years. What does this moment feel like to Iranians, not just there on the ground, but really around the world right now?
Right. You mentioned earlier that tensions have eased, maybe internationally a bit, but tensions in Iran, in the streets of Iran, have not eased. The people of Iran are in a hand-to-hand combat with the regime, whether it is visible in the street or not. And the executions are a marker of that. Just in 2025, they killed over 2,200 people. But their desire is still for regime change. And the regime change request has a pedigree that dates back 45 years and to the formation of the National Council of Resistance of Iran and the regime choice to crack down. The good news is the people of Iran have an organized resistance that is trying to change the regime and establish a secular democratic republic. And I'm really glad that just yesterday, 59 bipartisan members of the United States House of Representatives sent a letter to Secretary Rubio urging kind of reaffirming the Iranian people's desire for that republic, yeah, and urging support.
And do they want the United States to come in and strike? Like, tell me about the thinking of Iranians when it comes to that. Do they want President Trump to greenlight a strike and come in and use his military might to help with this?
Right. I think from here in the United States, I would be in the wrong place to speak for the people of Iran directly. But what I do know, the Iranian people in the streets are fighting this regime themselves. They want to make this change themselves. They need moral and political support. The international community, including the United States, should sever all ties with the regime, expel its diplomats from their capitals, and hold the person of Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader, accountable for ordering the massacre that unfolded before us. Those steps must occur now, not tomorrow. That is more urgently needed than any kind of military intervention.
And let me, too, just before I let you go, ask you about this newest round of financial sanctions that the United States placed on multiple Iranian leaders connected to these brutal crackdowns. Do they care about that financial squeeze at all? Does that move the needle in any way?
Well, of course, this regime in Iran is controlled by the IRGC. It is designed to keep it in effect. It is a mafia and is highly susceptible to financial pressure. And so it is imperative that we keep the financial pressure. But on top of it, we must keep in mind that the IRGC is not even listed as a terrorist organization by our allies in Europe. That must occur. The people of Iran's desire to establish a republic, and its leader, the people of Iran's resistance's leader, Mariam Rajavi, has said designation of the IRGC is imperative to the fall of this regime. That must occur immediately.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.